What is good, everyone? Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining myself and Peter Jennings here. We're gonna break down the championship slate, 2-game slate. Should be super fun. All on Sunday, no Saturday games on this slate. Peter, how you doing, man?
Doing great, dude. Sad we have like the last NFL slate of the year. Obviously, there'll be showdown for Super Bowl, but this is the last multi-game slate. But man, four great teams and should be a ton of fantasy goodness. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it comes and goes so quick. I feel like we're all itching to get those best balls in August, getting preseason in, and then the next thing we know, we're literally itching for best balls and ready for preseason again.
Yeah, dude.
It's crazy.
I'm stoked for both those things.
Always.
Saw your boy Bad Girl out at the
Yeah.
championship. That was fun. We got to hang for a while, and yeah, I'm stoked for it, dude.
I love that Horse just busted, especially after Proctor's tweet, and then Horse just follows it up with, "Well, that was me, straight bust as soon as possible."
It's funny, man. That was a good time, but yeah, I think DFS wise, there's a lot to look at, and definitely some good betting opportunities too.
Yeah, for sure. Did you buy your way in, or did you participate? Or?
Oh yeah, I just bought my way in. I didn't play any of the cues, so
That's
yeah, it was fun.
nice. Good overlay there. A lot of plus. This is a plus EV move, dude, to get in that. That's insane.
Yeah, I learned a lot. Got lucky to cash. I had first game went perfect for me on Sunday. I had Patriots first quarter, Sony Michel to score first, parlayed with like all these Saints guys to score first. So it could have really hit big, but snuck into the cash and learned a lot. It was really fun.
Awesome, man. Good. Glad you had a good time. This first game, Saints, the Rams at the Saints, and we've got honestly, I think probably the better of the two games, but they're both great games. We have a great over-under here sitting at 51. We got the Saints implied at 30, over-under at 56. And the Saints at 30 and the Rams at 26.5. What are your thoughts on this one, Peter?
Well, the Saints have been more defensive, a more defensive team over the last 10 weeks or so, and especially since Ingram's come back. They're running the ball and playing great defense. So that's the one concern I guess I have in this game for a total of 56 is that the Saints have been really living off their defense more than their offense, which I think is a little bit of a misconception amongst people, who are looking at this game. But yeah, the Rams, I think, are really the contrarian play here. I think Goff in the passing game makes a lot of sense in tournaments. The downside of that, Goff has had pretty extreme home road splits, and going into New Orleans and that stadium for this type of game, it's going to be incredibly loud. But they've been running the ball efficiently, and that's really the story here. I think most sharps are hitting the Rams, which I find intriguing. They've also played better defense since Aqib Talib's come back as well. So there's a lot to kind of unpack here. But I definitely like the next game a little bit more in terms of like plays I have a ton of conviction on. I think the Rams passing game's the tournament play. Todd Gurley's too cheap around the industry. And then on the Saints, it's pretty easy. You're looking at Kamara, Thomas, potentially Ingram if you need to do something sneaky. But yeah, that's where I'm at. What about you?
Yeah, I think for me, Alvin is just way too cheap. It's kind of insane to see him priced down. And Gurley is cheap in this matchup too, but a $6,500 Alvin Kamara at home with a 30-point implied team total seems like the clear-cut chalk at the running back position. And quite frankly, I think a lot of people stay away from Todd Gurley just with recency bias with how much CJ Anderson touched the ball last week and got goal line work. And the encouraging news is that Gurley was out there running a lot of routes. So he definitely is still involved, but I do think that the recency bias is going to bite a lot of people on the Gurley and CJ Anderson thing. And I think that is where you can probably get a ton of leverage, but the matchup isn't good either. The Saints have been fantastic against the run. So it's a very tough spot. I think in anything that's paying out, 30% and higher, I think that Gurley's probably not on my teams. He's definitely not going to make head-to-heads for me. I think you can make a much more balanced roster without using him. You have any thoughts on fading Gurley in cash?
I think it's close. I mean, I like a lot of running backs. I mean, it depends on the site too. If we're talking DraftKings, I agree with you. Kamara price play. I'm going to be all in on Damian Williams again. And then you have some other options. I mean, James White, I think, is a really nice play. People will be chasing the points with Sony Michel. I won't go CJ Anderson. I think I saw enough out of Gurley to be excited to play him in this spot relative to most. I mean, Anderson's been great. Listen, I mean, he's getting a ton of rushing attempts, and he's been really good and efficient. But this Saints defense is a much different type of team, and I think they might struggle a little bit to just run the ball effectively like they have been, which should mean more snaps with Gurley, which is why I like the passing game a little bit more. Robert Woods is a great matchup in the slot. Brandon Cooks has really good splits indoors. He does draw a tougher matchup, but I think that the Rams are going to have to be really balanced and throwing the ball quite a bit, and I don't think they can get away with just running the football all the time like they have been with Anderson.
No, I 100% agree here, and that's why I think Gurley definitely still needs to be in the consideration in large field stuff for sure, especially if he's going to come in under owned. And looking at fan share ownership projections, that seems to be the way that it's going to be right now. I think we'll wait for a Levitan to get his ownership projections up and see where Levitan has them, because those are usually pretty sharp too. Can I put you on the spot with one of your models over at Fantasy Labs, Peter?
Sure, of course.
So you guys have Goff as the highest rated quarterback, and let me just explain that real quick. He's not the highest projected quarterback, but when factoring things in like projected plus minus, Vegas, opponent rating, things like that, you guys obviously have a model that outputs a rating. Goff is number one. I will say it's like a half a point difference between all these quarterbacks, but what are your thoughts on Goff?
Yeah, I in my personal model, he's third ahead of Brady, which is how I think I'd go. I mean, Mahomes is like my model. Mahomes is like by far the best rated. I think he's clearly the play. But Goff is interesting. I mean, I probably prefer Goff to Breeze with the discount in price in tournaments. And the Saints is just running a lot, but we'll see. I mean, the big thing you have to figure out is how much you believe in kind of this resurgence of the Rams defense and how defensive this New Orleans team has been. I mean, a ton of their games have been really low scoring. So I'm struggling with that choice. I do think New Orleans has an easier path running the football than the Rams do, since New Orleans has been so good versus the run. But yeah, I definitely don't think Goff should be number one. I think this is clearly a Mahomes slate. And right now we have Breeze projected for a significantly higher ownership than Goff. So it just depends. I mean, Sean Corner, who does the projections at Fantasy Labs now, he has a tendency to group players a lot closer together than most projection sites. So that's why you're probably seeing Goff rate a little bit higher given the price discount. But to me, it's pretty clear you want to be going Mahomes.
Yeah, I definitely think it's Mahomes or Breeze too. And just like you said, to be clear, Corner does have those guys projected higher from a raw median projection standpoint. But I just thought it was interesting that rating was creeping up in a couple of those models. So thanks for clarifying that one for me. So we got some news, today we got Keith Kirkwood out, and then we have Ben Watson out. And both of those guys had missed practice yesterday and the day before. So some of that news we might have been able to anticipate, but I do think it's interesting now. Quite frankly, I'm a huge believer in large field stuff to just eliminate some of these fringe players. And so these guys like Josh Hill, Dan Arnold, while Dan Arnold is like an extremely talented wide receiver, if you go look at like some of his metrics and his spark score and things like that, he definitely pops. What are you doing with a tight end, if any, in this slate, or excuse me, on this game?
Man, that's the hardest part about this whole slate is Kelsey is just far and away the best play.
Yeah.
And he's going to be really, really heavily owned. People are going to still convince themselves on Gronk. He just doesn't look the same at all, and he's been so bad. I think they're really trying to use him as a blocker, which he's more effective at than a pass catcher at this point. Still has a lot of value in the red zone, but just not the same athlete with all the injuries he's had. And then you get into this game, and I mean, yeah, you're looking at Gerald Everett, Josh Hill, Tyler Higbee. I put a ton of Gerald Everett last week. He got two targets, I guess. Had a zero ball the game before, after some pretty consistent production in terms of targets and catches. So that's a tricky thing, trying to figure out what the Rams are going to do. I do think they're worth shots, both Higbee and Everett. in tournaments, just because there's going to be so little ownership and like the majority of the field's going to be on Kelsey and Gronk. Dan Arnold, I guess, is fine. I don't know. I mean, these are just dart throws at a position where everyone's going to be on one guy who has by far the best equity. So it's a tough call.
Yeah, and so for me on this, honestly, all it does is it just makes me like Ted Ginn that much more. I mean, the guy saw what was it, 7 targets last week, but only caught 3 of them. His air yards were through the roof, and he just really didn't come down with one of those big deeper bombs. If he comes down
with the first touchdown, that would have been like 100 for me.
Yeah, dude, it's I know Proctor had a really good sweat in the Wildcat with him too, with some PMR left. Like me, him, and Joe, and it sounds like you definitely had a lot of equity. And
I had him parlayed for like the first touchdown too, and I was all in on FanDuel and draft. It was a big swing, not catching that first touchdown, but
yes,
it is what it is.
His ownership definitely seems like it's going to be up there this week. I think a lot of people were on him last week. We just weren't quite able to cash in, especially with the ownership going to be high this week. But I think for me, honestly, Woods, Cooks, really the only 2 guys that I'm really interested in single entry and cash stuff on the other side, on the Rams side of the ball. And then I want a lot of the Saints. Just, it's always hard to fade the Saints at home. It's a Coors Field, right? So I think this is going to be a pretty high pace game too. For what it's worth, I definitely think we get more what we got. I don't know, what was it, like week 12 when the Rams were in the Superdome? We should get some points like that. So
yeah, I will point out the Rams are getting really healthy across the board, which is big for them. So I do like that, and I've seen a couple of sharp people, including Empire Maker, say they're on the Rams plus 3.5, which is interesting to me. I have more conviction on the next game, but yeah, it's an interesting betting spot. Love the Ginn call. And what do you do with Michael Thomas? Can't fit everyone, but Michael Thomas is the top projected receiver on the slate and was just incredible last week.
I think that's the full hedge where it's a 2-game slate. So if you are running 150, I think you're extremely overweight on Michael Thomas. And then I think in your cash games and head-to-heads, that's where you actually move away from the the high variancy position that is a wide receiver, and you go with a more balanced roster construction to actually fit in Travis Kelce, because you're not getting in Mahomes, Kelce, Thomas. It's very, very hard. You're leaving yourself extremely thin. I think you can do it. I think Keith Kirkwood was like one of the guys you could do it with, and he's out now. So it's very thin to get Michael Thomas in there. So for me, not a cash game play. If you want to play him, he's the number 1 wide receiver on the slate, hands down. There's no questions asked. So he's just a guy who I think you end up having like 70% in 150, and then you just don't have in cash, and it's the ultimate hedge play.
All right, I don't mind that. I do think he's really safe, but yeah, you have to figure out where you're going to save somewhere. And receiver, there's a ton of value. DraftKings really priced everyone down. Woods and Cooks, I think, are really nice in this game. Ginn, and then you have Edelman and Tyreek in the other spot. Sammy Watkins. So there's a lot of receivers to play. But yeah, Michael Thomas clearly the top guy. 16 targets last week was ridiculous. We'll see what the game flow is like. There's definitely downside, but I do prefer the Kamara route versus going Michael Thomas. Tough to fit both unless you're feeling really good about like Breeze. I think if you're going to play both, you should definitely be playing Breeze.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think Breeze is in a pretty good spot. Obviously, Taysom Hill will end up cannibalizing him down at the goal line or something. It seems to happen, every other time. It's getting a little ridiculous, but it is what it is. I don't know. You have any other final thoughts on that game?
No, the only other thing is some sharp people are on the Rams. So if you're looking to bet it, that's one interesting angle. I don't have conviction at all on either side here. I just hope it's a really good game, which it should be.
Yeah, I might have to move to Colorado just so I can get tennis games in with you and EM2, just so I can hear the little tidbits that you guys talk about and get some money down wherever EM2 is getting his money down, because he seems like a pretty damn sharp guy.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing.
All right, Kansas City Chiefs and the New England Patriots. Chiefs 29.5 implied team total. Patriots 26.5 implied team total. 56 point over under. And the Chiefs are a -3 home favorite. So for me, this game, I think it's a lot of James White, a lot of Travis Kelce. Sammy Watkins at 4K is great. You've said that you absolutely think it's a Patrick Mahomes game. I think I think on the opposite side of the ball, you know, Sony Michel is definitely going to carry some ownership just because of what he did last week, but he's still down there relative to the rest of the running back field, right? James White, Damian Williams, Sammy Watkins, Alvin Kamara, all of those guys project to have a higher ownership than Sony Michel. So looks like he's in a good leverage spot. But where are you out on this one, Peter?
Yeah, so to me, this is a really good spot to load up on Kansas City. I think people are going to be on Mahomes, but I love the Chiefs in this game. I love betting them. Line is moving. I have a bunch of Chiefs -3. I just saw that the Chiefs went to -3.5 on Bookmaker. We'll see where this line closes. It'll probably end up at 3 or 3.5, but I do believe the Chiefs are a better team in a neutral field, and they're playing at home in Arrowhead, and basically the line's saying that these teams are very even. And I just think the Chiefs are a much better team. The Patriots, to me, obviously played amazing last week, and it's hard to bet against Tom Brady in the playoffs and Belichick, but Arrowhead's a really tough place to play. And this Patriots offense, I do think can have success, but they lack, without Josh Gordon, they're just a little easier to game plan, especially since Gronkowski's not the dynamic playmaker that he once was. I do think James White will have a really good game. I like Edelman, but I think the Chiefs have an advantage there, and I just don't see how the Patriots are going to slow down this offense. Worth noting, I heard Cowherd talking about this, that I guess Mahomes' 5 worst games are all the 5 coldest games that he's played. I don't know how much that means, if that's any signal at all. I'm going to look into it a little bit more tomorrow, but I don't really have too many concerns going against this Patriots defense for Mahomes. I think that the Chiefs can play really well in this spot, and I'm going to be exposed heavily to Mahomes, Damian Williams, and Kelsey, and then I'll play some Watkins and Hill in tournaments. What are your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I know that there's a lot of trends in regards to these extremely cold weather games and where they come in on the under or the over. I think what I'll do, honestly, before I really start reading into that, I'm gonna wait until Saturday night, early Sunday morning, and I'm just gonna take a look at the player props and see if we see some extreme outliers in passing yards versus like Damian Williams rushing yards, right? And just really see where Vegas has a lean on some of these guys in regards to the player props, and help maybe dictate that, or excuse me, help use that to help dictate where I actually bet the game in regards to a total and then how much exposure that I have. I think Damian Williams is once again in an absolute smash spot. I mean, Kansas City is averaging 3.2 points per drive. New England's averaging 1.5. I just think Kansas City is in a really, really good spot here. 41 yards per drive versus New England's 32. And look, New England showed up after 2 weeks of preparation at home against the Chargers, who had to travel east like 9 times in a row on a short time zone. So it's just, for me, I definitely think that the -3 points for Kansas City looks real good here. And look, I'm a big Bill Belichick truther. I think the Patriots organization is a very, very good and sharp organization. But I think Mahomes and Andy Reid definitely pull this one away. And then, yeah, the biggest thing is what to do with a $7,100 on DraftKings Travis Kelce, because when you start building out 150, it's very hard to either have 90% of him and then just jam in the guys like Watkins and some of the cheaper guys and basically get overexposed to Woods and Cooks and some of the underpriced wide receivers, or you're looking at Everett, Higbee, Dan Arnold. It's that to me, and I've tried to avoid fringe player tight ends as much as possible, just because I try and avoid fringe players as much as possible, like rooting for your boy Michael Gallup to get his second catch in the third quarter is just like, you got to be kidding me. I can't believe this is what I'm sweating right now. So it's a tough one. And I think, honestly, I'm just going to, if Kelsey is projecting at like 39%, 40% ownership, I'll probably just double the field and figure it out. I think that's where I'll take a stance on tight end.
I think he's going to be so heavily owned, man. That's the problem. I get it. He's expensive. They priced everyone down, and he really didn't get a price decrease at all. Going through, he's been, in the mid 7s, low 7s, but this is kind of his average price if you look at it. He started the year not anywhere near 7,000. So over the last, 6-7 weeks, this is kind of where he's been sitting, whereas everyone else is priced down. But when you move away from Kelsey, it's like, where do you go? And that's kind of the hard part. I don't trust Gronk at all. But
at all,
maybe he shows up. I mean, he's just looked so bad recently. I do think this game's going to be warmer. Right now I'm seeing like 27, 28 degrees. I don't think it's going to be like this frigid game that everyone was anticipating for a little while. So keep an eye on that weather. I just want as much exposure to this Chiefs team as I can, and I like starting with Mahomes, Williams, and Kelsey.
Yep. I think that's a really, really good start. And I tried to tell myself a story on Rob Gronkowski last week. I was like, potential retirement game. He's got the bye week, or not the bye week, but he's got the bye. He's got plenty of rest. He's just ice bathing it up, and he still comes out and doesn't do anything. And it's just like, I think he's done, man. I think he's still very good at blocking. We've seen that. He's not Rob Gronkowski of old, and a $4,100 price tag clearly shows that. It's very hard. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I understand the ownership, but I think you either take a stance one way or the other. I don't think I want to meet the field on his ownership. I think I want to be drastically under it, or I want to be, you can't even be 3X on a guy like him because he's projected to be 45, 50% owned. And so you just kind of got to double the field and kind of hover around that 80, 85%. And so but yeah, I totally agree. I think the Kelsey, now, where are you at on Damian Williams? Because it sounds like you said Mahomes, Kelsey, and Tyreek, right? That's where you like to start?
No, I'm all in on Damian Williams.
Oh, okay, got it. Awesome.
All in. I had him 100% last week, and I'm going to be 100% again.
It's one of the easiest locks, I think. Like $6,400 for him is way too cheap. He should. I mean, but so is Kamara. Like, they clearly priced this down to make it easy for people to get him in, because both these guys should be 7,900, 8,300, give or take, right? Like, the opportunities that they're getting for the implied team totals and the environments that they're in are just too good to pass up.
Yeah, I'm all in on Damian. I mean, like, it's not even going to be a decision for me. So he's just so dynamic in this passing game. I mean, 25 rush attempts, 6 targets on the highest implied team total. I think that you just load up on Damian Williams. I mean, he's been great, and it'll be interesting to see if Kareem Hunt gets a gig. I know a lot of teams are talking about him potentially being added to their roster, and I did see that the Chiefs and Saints team total are right around the same right now too. But Damian Williams has looked dynamic, and it just more the people who say running back doesn't matter. A lot of these guys like Damian Williams are kind of proving that point.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it matters a little bit, to be fair, but if you get a dynamic player like Damian Williams, which there seems to be like 30 or 40 of these guys, like, throw them on a great offense, they're going to excel, and I think that's what we're seeing. And I think you just keep buying until it's priced appropriately.
Yeah, nope, totally agree there. The one guy I think that is a little hard to get a pulse on, but I think because he's so cheap, like Sammy Watkins he's $4,000. He got that 8 target game that we had kind of seen him get a handful of games, dating back to weeks 3, 4, 5, and 6, et cetera, where he was seeing 7, 8, 9 targets and seeing a decent amount of market share of targets in the offense. And at $4,000, but at some point, and I know it's a 2-game slate, and I know that 4 and 5 man stacks are extremely viable, especially in large field stuff. But at some point, you have to start worrying about how exposed you are to the Kansas City Chiefs offense, right? Or do you not?
I'm totally fine having max exposure on almost all my team. Like on FanDuel, I'm gonna have 4 guys in most of the lineups, and I'm just gonna be really heavy on these guys. I think they're really, really sharp plays, and I expect the Chiefs to play well. I mean, the Patriots just don't have the speed at linebacker. They do have a couple guys that are starting to play better in the secondary. I mean, Gilmore was unreal all year, so that's a little bit of a concern. But we saw Tyreek Hill. I mean, he can just beat anybody at any point. So then it's really hard for them to figure out what to take away. So I'm totally fine just kind of loading up on the Chiefs. And then the interesting thing is, what do you do with these Patriot guys? I mean, I am a believer that's a James White game. Mm-hmm. But the game flow is right for that. I think people will be chasing Michelle. Michelle was a huge boon last week. I was fortunate to have him 7% owned on the 4-game slate, probably 20% owned on the second game. So that was really nice to be all in on him. I won't be as heavy on him this week. And I do think the patch secondary receivers are interesting. Cordell Patterson is a flyer for ownership. Some people might still go Dorsett. If you think the Patriots are going to be playing from behind, you'd start thinking about these punts to kind of balance out these Chiefs stacks.
Yeah, the Patterson call, I think, is probably one of the more interesting ones when you are trying to jam Michael Thomas in. That you really have to look at flexing a guy like Cordell Patterson, and you're giving up a lot in that flex position with the running back equity with Williams and Kamara and White, who I really think should make up your running back core, especially in cash games this week. But CPAT is definitely one of the more interesting guys that you can talk about flexing and some of the large field stuff to get that Michael Thomas, Kelsey, all the expensive guys exposure. I think he's probably my favorite cheap guy to hashtag dart throw. But yeah, Hogan's $3,700. Like they're all priced down, and from what it sounds and looks like from a projected or implied team total, they should be passing a little bit more than they did last week. So
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. It's an interesting one. I mean, it's a chalky kind of thought. I do think that Tom Brady is going to be pretty low owned. I mean, again, there's only 4 options, so no one's going to be super low owned, but Brady will be somewhat low owned. Both road quarterbacks are going to have less ownership. Don't hate going like Brady, White, Edelman, and just hoping that maybe Damian Williams rushes a touchdown in, or the Patriots just come out and play great again. I mean, last week they had so much success running the football, which was key to mitigate the pass rush of the Chargers. But against the Chiefs here, I think that there's a variety of ways that they could try to attack this offense. We'll see. It's just a tough place to play. And the other thing is the Patriots have been so bad on the road this year, which makes sense. I mean, Foxborough's a nice home field advantage, and the way the Patriots play, where they dink and dunk down the field, when they have to deal with all that extra noise, that can hurt their efficiency. So I'm pretty high on this Chiefs, and my favorite bet of the week, and feels too easy, honestly, which is means it's probably going to lose.
Yeah.
-3, it just felt like a slam dunk. And we'll see. Maybe that's the wrong thinking, but I have a lot of conviction on that bet.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best bet too. And honestly, you're setting yourself up really nicely to at least. It's very, very hard to get swap on a 2-game slate like this, but at least you can move away from an Edelman to a Hogan and just eat the $3,000 difference and hope that it's a Hogan game, right? At least you can play catch up a little bit if you are exposed to this Kansas City team as heavily as you plan to be exposed to. So that's where I'm at. I definitely feel like it is a Chiefs all in with sprinkles of White and Edelman. Quite frankly, the Brady, the Michelle, the Gronk, like you, tons of Brady, Michelle last week, a lot of swap to Michelle. And then the Sunday only slate, I had all the James White and Sony Michelle on the same team too. So I was fortunate enough to cash in on that. But this week, I'm just not feeling it with Sony. It does not set up for a multi-touchdown game for him. And guess who just got ruled out, Peter? I don't know if you have any DDR, but I think we might have to wrap this up because DeMar DeRozan just got ruled out. So I got to make some swaps, baby.
Oh my God. Are you serious?
Yeah. I just
terrible.
Just saw that. So I was going to do some player prop stuff, but I think with Scott Barrett and Johnny Proctor taking everyone home tomorrow as well and giving a bunch of content analysis, I think I'll let us get out of here so we can make some NBA swaps, Peter. So, dude, thank you so much for coming on, man. I know you're a busy man. Obviously, CSURAM88 on the Twitter machine. I think everyone knows that. But Peter, thanks again, man, and run good this weekend.
DeRozan news is crazy. Have a good bit of him tonight, which sucks. But Hodge, you've done a great job. Congrats on all the success with Power Hour. You're a selfless dude. You're always helping people out, and I admire that a ton. Hope you have good luck this weekend, and look forward to chatting soon and coming back.
Yeah, definitely. Take it easy.
Later, bro.